initially, the candidates will be given a 3-minute time allotment to make opening remarks. The order has been chosen. There will be a 2-minute response from each candidate after everybody makes their initial opening remarks. The candidates may or may not choose to use that additional 2 minutes. Then there will be a few questions from the United Homeowners of Fort Lee. The questions, I just saw them tonight. The questions will be distributed to each of the candidates prior to their response. Then there will be questions from the audience. I'll try to go from my right, to the left. You have 1 minute to ask the question. We ask that you please keep it in the form of a question. And the candidate that you have addressed it to will have 2 minutes for a response, and then followed by any other candidate who wishes to make that response. Okay, to my right, to your left is Mayor Mark Sokolovic, Councilman Armand Cohen, and Councilman Michael Sargenti. The challengers, Judith Fisher, Martha Cohen, and Alfred Norton. The way it was picked, the opening remark for 3 minutes will be by Mayor Sokolovic. Their timekeeper is over there. You will have an indication when there's only 15 seconds left. So when there's a 15 seconds left, some piece of paper of some sort is going to be waved. Okay, Mayor.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Good evening. My name is Mark Sokolovic. I'm the mayor of the borough of Fort Lee. I am the incumbent seeking re-election this November. First and foremost, thank you to United Homeowners for providing this forum for all of us to speak about the issues. Just very briefly, I became your mayor almost 4 years ago. It feels like it was yesterday. And a commitment that I made to each and every one of you and every member of the public was that I was going to work as hard at this job as I possibly could. And I will tell you that we have. Over the past 4 years, we've introduced things in Fort Lee that have never been introduced before. We've had hiring freezes. We've reduced the workforce by 15%. We've cut bond debt by over $20 million, which is a historic high in this borough. We've introduced innovative income-producing programs such as the ambulance copay program, that the income from that program is generating upwards of $1 million. We continue to maintain, through the economic conditions, amongst the best emergency services that the County of Bergen has to offer, so forth and so on. The hiring freeze has been something that's been in place for the last 4 years because we've done this in response to what's otherwise a horrible economic crisis. Look, it could have been easy, and the approach 4 years ago simply could have been cut all the programs at the community center, reduce the fire department, reduce the police department, and then deplete the quality of life that's offered here in Fort Lee. Instead, we found a way to be fiscally prudent and continue to provide a quality of life that Fort Lee residents have always grown accustomed to. Whether that's the senior center, whether that's the community center, whether that's dialing 911 and having emergency services at your door within seconds with state-of-the-art equipment. Whatever the pros and cons may be, and this all is culminated in Money Magazine ranking Fort Lee amongst the top 5 communities in the country to retire to for communities of our size. And we're very, very proud of that. Our workforce reduction was achieved through attrition. There are families that we need to deal with. I get it. We perfectly understand what's going on in this economy. And that's why this year your municipal tax rate was increased by less than 1%, 0.89 to be exact. The lowest in over 21 years. And we're proud of that. And I'll throw this at you as well. We had an option to defer our pension contributions this year. And if we did that, we would have been issuing refund checks to all of you. But the way it was laid out and the way it was proposed to us did not make economic sense to avail ourselves to that option. So as a consequence, we bit the bullet, we paid our pension contribution, and we were still able to deliver the lowest municipal increase in over 20-some-odd years. Now, having said that, we're not done. You can expect something in the vicinity of that same, if not better, in these upcoming fiscal years. I'm proud to be your mayor. I worked very, very hard at it. I consider it to be a privilege, and I ask you for your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming out tonight. Thank you to United Homeowners for sponsoring. And thank you for the opportunity to earn your vote as candidate for mayor. I'm sure for many of you, this is not the first time you've seen me. Last time I ran for office, somebody here asked me for my view on abortion. And in the event the Supreme Court delegates this decision to the mayor of Fort Lee, I'd like to go on the record as being pro-choice. For those of you who don't know me, I may appear similar to my opponent. He's the owner of a small business, and I am also the owner of a small business, albeit one with significantly more employees. He's had prior government service before election. He served a partial term on our municipal council. I also have experience in government. I currently run a state agency that earned over $11 million this year. I manage a union staff of over 50 employees, and when I took this agency over from my Democratic predecessor, it was infamous for inefficiency and bad customer service. And while we're still making improvements, we've been able to increase productivity, cut way back on customer complaints, and boost revenue using the exact same resources and without product cost increases. Yes, I run the Lodi DMV, tackling and succeeding at what is widely believed to be one of the most difficult management positions in the state. Here in Fort Lee, I see three significant problems. Declining quality of life. Fort Lee has gone from a stately suburban town to an overdeveloped one with ever-increasing overcrowding, traffic, and crime. Second, schools that fail to meet the educational needs of our children. And third, an inefficient and opaque government that charges us more and more for fewer and fewer services. These were the problems the last time I ran, and they are still our problems today. Time passes, nothing changes. Last time I sat down to debate for the mayoral election, the big issue was the failed Centuria project. Now it's redevelopment area 5, and it remains an issue. While the current administration has spent your tax dollars to study, litigate, and promise changes, still the property remains fallow. Despite the significant investment of our resources, they have been unable to bring the changes they promised to champion. The mayor then promised that if the property was underdeveloped in 2011, he would not run for re-election, yet here he sits. Their party touts the importance of social services, and at the same time, their spending habits drive hardworking people onto the roles of public assistants. Instead of paving the way for local business to expand and create jobs, this administration has driven business out of our borough. They continue to increase taxes, fees, and spending. My focus as your mayor will be to increase private employment locally, reduce both spending and taxes, and improve the quality of life for all the residents of our borough of Fort Lee.
Next, we go to Councilman Bowman.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hold it close.
My name is Armand Pohan. I live in Horizon House, and I'm running for re-election to the Borough Council. During the past 3 years, despite the worst economic conditions in the country since the Great Depression, the Democratic mayor and council here in Fort Lee have stayed the course, tightly controlling municipal costs with no real decrease in municipal services. How have we done this? 4 years ago, we implemented a hiring freeze, replacing only those employees performing critical jobs and allowing other jobs to disappear through attrition. Today, there are 44 fewer full-time employees in the borough than they were in 2007, a 15% reduction. We have negotiated collective bargaining agreements with our blue and white-collar employees, providing for net cost increases of less than 2% per year. And we have staunchly resisted the demands of the police union to exceed those levels. We have reduced the authorized debt of the borough over the past 4 years by $20 million. This year, we have taken advantage of historically low interest rates to refinance $15 million of existing bond debt and thus further reduce annual interest payments. We have implemented an insurance copay program for services provided for our ambulance corps, thereby adding $750,000 in net revenue to the budget each year. As a result of these efforts, the annual increase in the municipal portion of the borough's tax levy has risen less than 2.5% per year over the past 3 years, and less than 1% in the current year, as the mayor said, the single lowest percentage increase in the past 20 years. And all of this despite large increases in state pension costs and county sewer costs over which we have no control. Not only have we preserved existing services, we also have taken numerous steps to improve the quality of life here in town. We have implemented a state-of-the-art communication system for all of our emergency services. Our parks are in immaculate condition. Our cultural and recreational programs are growing and are the most extensive in Bergen County. We have created a sign and facade review committee which is slowly transforming the commercial face of the town. We continue to explore green initiatives to reduce energy costs and protect the environment. We have conducted a thoroughly open public inquiry into the potential uses of redevelopment Area 5 along Main Street in Lemoyne. Arising on that process, we have selected the plans of 2 developers with whom we are now conducting arduous negotiations to create a downtown area of which we all can be proud. We've accomplished this as a team with a great leader and which deliberates but does not engage in partisan bickering. And for what we've accomplished, I ask for your support. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Cohen.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Martha Cohen, and I'm running for council. Last year, I ran for office for the first time, and thanks to many of you, I received 44% of the vote, while being outspent by my opponents at least 12 to 1. I thought that this competitive race by an unknown would make the council more responsive to our needs and lead to a rebirth of our town. Unfortunately, that has not been the case. In fact, since last year, things have gotten even worse. There are more empty stores, including the landmark Florida's, and there are higher taxes and fees, increased bonding, and the Centuria development remains in limbo. Our council is asleep at the wheel while Fort Lee is dying. It hurts me, and I know it hurts you. I wasn't planning to run again. Believe me, it takes a lot of time, energy, and fortitude, especially when you are up against an entrenched machine where my opponents are running for their 4th term, and I'm a working mom. But there was a moment I want to share with you that made me understand the importance of fighting so that hardworking, common sense people like you and I can try to save Fort Lee before it's too late. The council has one night when they allow comments on the municipal budget, followed by the final vote. A few of us came to ask questions. Some they could answer, some they half answered, but I found one that none of them could answer, a real moment of clarity. You see, the mayor and council are not only eligible to participate in the health plan and the state pension plan, but they also receive a salary. In 2010, the number budgeted was approximately $76,500, but the actual expended was almost $94,000, and that is the number they were using for the 2011 budget. No one can answer why that number increased approximately $17,000. Now let me ask you something. Would you know if there was more money in your paycheck? Of course you would. So if they can't respond to this question, how can I really believe that they seriously vetted the almost $68 million budget? They like to say that they had only a small increase, but it wasn't small to all of us who are paying more for pretty much everything these days. And the reality is they bonded millions and had an, quote, emergency appropriation, unquote, to pay for almost $2 million in compensated absence liability, which would have raised the budget considerably. In addition, there was almost $2 million in salary savings coming from police retirements, and still your taxes went up. You only kick the can down the road, paying interest on these loans and bonds that will be due someday, and probably will be refinancing many of them if history serves as a guide in the years to come. Not only can't the current council members solve our borough's problems, they also lack the motivation, the vision, and the drive to do so. Last year, I suggested many things, including a free shuttle from the George Washington Bridge to the A train for our residents, and they snickered. But it is even more important now that we are dealing with these outrageous tolls. Ask yourself, where was the council months before the Port Authority was considering a hike? It wasn't a secret that they were considering it. Why didn't they demand an audit then instead of joining the parade after the fact? The disparity between the council view and the ordinary man is in these two sentences. At the public hearing, the mayor was quoted as saying there must be a happy medium, while another participant said the plan was totally unconscionable. And did I say more? You deserve better. There are so many things we can do together. There are no excuses.
Next we go to Councilman Sargenti.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As most of you know, I'm Michael Sargenti. I'm married to my wife, Christine, for the past 31 years, and I've been a resident here ever since. I have 2 children, Kristen and Michael, both who have graduated from Fort Lee High School system and wanted to graduate from college. Prior to serving on the council, and while serving on the council, I have been very active with our youth in our town. I served prior to becoming an elected official as a coach in the Little League, soccer, basketball, girls softball, and numerous other activities in town, both boys and girls. I also served on the executive board back in the day for School 3 PTA. As a councilman for the past 9 years, I've served as a liaison to many departments: police, fire, the recreation department, and school board. I have watched the children of Fort Lee grow and become adults in our community. Some now serve as coaches, others have become business owners and police officers. I can't express how proud I am to see the transformation of these people. As a proud member of the governing body, and with the leadership of our mayor, with our council, we have reduced bond debt, maintained our superior services to the residents, constructed a community center which offers numerous daily programs for all our residents. We also have the Dancing Under the Stars for recreation, we have movies, we have concerts, school plays, all of which, if everybody has come to it, has been very well attended. Have a police department that is second to none. Our first responders are in a class of their own. We recently organized them, we recently recognized them all at the 9/11 Memorial dedication. And now we're in the process of redeveloping Area 5. I take great pride in the accomplishments of our governing body. It has always been my nature to be part of the community in which I reside. Now, having served on the council, I proudly state that the community is part of me. I serve on the council as your friend and a neighbor, and many will attest if someone has a need, I am, and we are, always available to lend a helping hand to the community. Thank you very much.
Next we go to Mr. Norton.
Hi, my name is Al Norton, and I'm running for Fort Lee Council. Before proceeding, I'd like to say and give a warm round of thanks to our current administration for the hard work they've done, Mayor Sargenti and Councilman Cohen, and Mayor Sokolovic and Councilman Sargenti and Cohen. Thank you. For those that don't know me, and many of you don't, I've been a resident of Fort Lee for over 15 years. I moved here in 1995 from Manhattan with my wife and daughter. My daughter was fortunate enough to go through the Fort Lee school system, through primary, middle, and high school, graduating from college in Connecticut, landing a master's in education out of Montclair State, and is now gainfully employed in a beautiful school district here in Bergen County. Knock on wood. Every day, she tells me and gives me great insight into what's happening in our schools. For those that are interested, she's not a big supporter of Governor Christie. The reasons that I'm running are primarily threefold. By stating these reasons, I'm not casting blame or laying blame at anyone's doorstep. However, in laying out these issues, there are legacy issues within Fort Lee that need to be examined. There's also macroeconomic issues of which Fort Lee cannot contend. The first issue I have is that since 1995, I have not seen a betterment. Since when I moved here, I've not seen a betterment in either the business, visual, or aesthetic footprint in Fort Lee. Walking down the streets, you continue to see excess traffic, lack of pedestrian traffic, storefronts out of business, and although highly touted, a redevelopment zone 5, which is nowhere. The second reason that I'm running is because, and what might be near to all homeowners here in Fort Lee, is property taxes. In 2000, Fort Lee collected roughly $70 million in property taxes from our residents. Those property taxes went to fund the municipality, the county, and the school. In 2010, those taxes became $115 million for those three entities. Say what you want, but that is a 6.2% annual increase over a 10-year period. That is unacceptable. The time has stopped, and they can kick the can down the road. Raising parking meters and making it difficult for businesses to prosper on Main Street is not a way to be prosperous. The third reason that I'm running, the third issue I have is the Port Authority. And I will leave it at that since it is an 800-pound gorilla in Fort Lee. And I commend the board, the council, and the mayor for opposing the toll hikes. I support a bipartisan committee and wish the audit that is supposed to take place in 90 days to be distributed and reviewed in a timely fashion, not distributed at 5 o'clock on New Year's Eve. Thank you for coming out.
Okay, next will be 2-minute responses, and we're going to start with Mrs. Fisher.
Thanks. I understand that economic conditions have played a big part in construction projects statewide. And at Helmsley showed no interest in developing the property. Town and Country failed to provide the expertise, vision, and business acumen necessary to advance their proposals. And that the two current owners of the property were required to compete for the opportunity to develop their asset and then litigate when this administration chose alternate developers. And even the designs that they themselves have pushed are flawed. They have put in place a situation that drove up the cost of this project to such an extent that it forced developers to request higher densities in order to make the project viable to their investors, ignoring the impact these changes will have on our infrastructures, including traffic, school population, police, fire, and quality of life. And we continue to bear the cost. Property tax hikes, municipal fees, and ordinances have continued to drive up rent and drive away people and businesses. Just look at the list of vacant storefronts, which has lengthened during the past administration. And we continue to get hammered. Although income per household has remained flat and property values have declined, this administration continues to raise taxes and spending. The only thing growing in our borough is the list of properties subject to the sheriff's auction for back taxes. Fort Lee now has a significant population living close to and in some cases below the poverty line. And while the number of children qualifying for free lunch at schools continues to climb, this administration has seen fit to give themselves raises on the backs of our residents rather than cut spending.
Next in the order is Mayor Sopwith.
Well, first of all, Judith, I gotta tell you, you cannot run, you can't run a borough out of a procedures manual, and you gotta deviate from standard pre-prepared statements, because that's not actually reality. Your biggest issue when you last ran for mayor was political patronage. That's what you said. That was your issue, political patronage. And now you're with the motor vehicles. Everybody's entitled to make a living, but you can't just throw facts out there and expect everybody to absorb them and not be refuted. There's not one statistic that even remotely suggests that Fort Lee's crime rate is any worse than it was last year, number one. Number two, you can't point to a program that's been cut in Fort Lee. In fact, I can point to 15 to 20 that have been added just in the last year. And number three, you know that it's actually disingenuous to blame the educational system for whatever it's worth on the mayor and council of the borough of Fort Lee. The way it works in New Jersey, that's a Board of Education issue. And quite frankly, under the circumstances, their effort should be applauded. But that's not before this tribunal. And if you plan on running the Board of Education, if you become mayor, you're running for the wrong seat. It bothers me when you talk about redevelopment 5. We could have said yes to this 100 times over. I could have attended a ribbon-cutting ceremony 10 times during the course of the last 4 years. But the political fortitude isn't to say yes and develop it. The political fortitude is to do it the right way. To make sure it's a happy mix of density that makes it economically feasible for a developer, and there are benefits that inure to the benefit of the community. A 2-acre park, a new theater for local cinema, another 1-acre park. That's what being mayor is all about. You can't throw stuff out there hopeful it's going to stick to the wall, and perhaps people will leave here and say, wow, that's what he did? We didn't. You can't point to a program that's been cut. It's irresponsible, it's not fair, and under the circumstances, there's been a great job that's been done here over the last 4 years.
Mrs. Cohen?
I hope this will be a civil discussion. Seems very
Tell the
bad.
truth and it will be.
Okay, let's talk about a couple of things that I'm really interested in. Let's talk about the bonding that the mayor and council like to talk about. They keep telling me that they saved all this money from bonding. And I just find this really interesting because if you look at the audit statements and if you look at the things that are posted on the web, which by the way, many things are not posted on the website, including minutes from meetings like the zoning board and the planning board, and minutes from their own meetings aren't posted till months and months later, and then some of them aren't accurate for people who have gone there. But that's taking that aside. If you look at the bonding, now they're talking about the 18 million, I know there's more that they've added on, the 18 million that they've referred to many times, that they saved $18 million because in 2007, I guess it was, there was $88 million in bond debt. But if you look at the audit statement of 2008, I believe, it will tell you that the $18 million bonding was authorized, but the bonds were never issued by the town. Thus, it was like having a credit line on your credit card of $18 million that you never used and returned this card to the bank. So that's why it went from 88 to 70 million. Then it went in 2009 to 62 million. Then it went in 2010 to 68 million. Plus, it's not clear, but I think the $1.8 million, they don't call it a bond, they call it an emergency appropriation, but you pay interest on it. Because they did not put any money aside for even some of the people that retired last year. I know the excuse is that 30-minute people retired, but at least some people shouldn't have been in that bond. That you have basically bonding that is equal to or more than what our annual budget is. I have a lot more to say, but my time's up.
We move to Councilman Bohan.
Thank you. Well, when I gave my opening remarks, I specifically listed 4 or 5 things that we have done to reduce the debt of this town, to reduce the budget of the town. And I'm waiting for one specific idea as to how we're going to make a further dent in these numbers. We hear that there's stores on Main Street that are empty. Hello? There are empty stores in many places right now because of an economy that is a national problem, not a local problem. But they're going to correct this problem. They're going to be friendly to business. They're going to cut taxes. If they cut taxes, what services specifically are they going to cut if they're going to cut taxes? What specific programs am I hearing tonight as to what is going to be cut? The only thing that I've heard from Martha Cohen in the past year was that we should not have a $5 parking permit fee that's good for 4 years. So vote for Martha Cohen, and she will cut your taxes by $1.25 a year. Well, not really, because still the program has to be administered, so maybe it'll come out of the general taxes rather than out of the permit fee. But I'm waiting for specifics. Let's hear them. What are you going to cut? Police, fire, parks? What are you going to cut? Let's hear it.
Mr. Norton.
Okay, in terms of what Mr. Cohen said, how would we cut expenses? I'm not quite sure, but I will tell you in a second a thought that I have. But I tell you what I would not do, and Mr. Pohan indicated in December meeting, is that in talking about the parking meters, he indicated that the parking meter fee was not really a significant amount. After all, in Fort Lee, we have fees for ambulance billing services, building permits, tree removal permits, tree erection fees, pet licensing, fingerprinting, garage sales, and a myriad of other user fees. The first thing I would do is take a look at the fees and see what I could do about eliminating them and make this a little bit more prosperous for the town to keep it.